Hi friends, John Wesley here from the Sense of Shelf podcast, and I want to tell you about Anchor. Anchor is what I use to record this delightful podcast that I am very thankful you're listening to. And Anchor has all the tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And from personal experience, editing from your phone is surprisingly easy and intuitive. And when you host your podcast on Anchor, you can distribute it to all the listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. It is literally everything you need to make your podcast all in one place, one easy app. And best of all, it is totally free. So if you find yourself thinking that you may want to start a podcast, I recommend you download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get yourself started. Thank you for listening, and God bless. Hello, friends. My name is John Wesley, and I welcome you to the Sense of Shelf podcast. This week is another non-guest week, so you just have to listen to my voice ramble on for a little while about whatever topic I choose. And this week, that topic is book to screen adaptations that I like. Now, all book lovers know that the book's always better than the movie or the TV show, but there are some instances where that's not entirely true. So I'm going to give how I feel about the adaptations that I like. I'm not going to do the ones I don't like because I don't want to put negativity out there. I like to keep it positive. Also, this is just my humble opinion. It is not a research paper on the accuracy of these adaptations. So, if my opinions bother you, you can respectfully tell me so. But again, it's not a research on the accuracy of these adaptations. It's just how I feel about them, whether I like them or not. I might comment on the accuracy if it's something that I feel is relevant to my opinion. But again, it's just how I feel about them. So, without further ado, let's get into the adaptations that I like. Now I'm going to preempt all of my choices with The Lord of the Rings. If you've listened to my previous episodes, or if you're a fan of my good friend Ben Hunt over at the Enlightened Podcast, you know my undying love for the Lord of the Rings books. They're my happy place. I read them every couple of years. They're just one of my favorite things in the world of literature. That being said, I really like the movies too. I have some minor qualms about some points and characters I wish were or were not in the movies. But again, referencing other episodes, by the time this is published, I might be on an episode or two talking about the Peter Jackson trilogy with Ben Hunt in the Enlightened Podcast. So I'm going to save my opinions for that. I know for a fact the episode we did about the 1978 Ralph Bakshi animated Lord of the Rings movie is out. And that was a very fun conversation. Bakshi did his best to stick to the source material, which is something I really appreciate about a chaotic movie. But all in all, I did enjoy it. I think we rated it at the end of the episode, and I think I gave it like a 7. He did a good job sticking with the source material. There's a lot of interesting and fun animations in it. All in all, I mean, if you can get past the chaos and how wrongly they treated Sam and the animation of Legolas, I think it's a good movie. I enjoy it. So, again, I do like the Peter Jackson trilogy and the Bakshi cartoon. of the Lord of the Rings. I would rank them very high up in the category of book-to-screen adaptations, but the books will always be number one to me. There's just nothing better than those. So, in regards to the rest of my choices for book-to-screen adaptations, I'm keeping it to things I've seen both, to things I've consumed both versions of, both I've read and watched. I've had the pleasure of watching the Twilight movies multiple times with my beautiful wife, but I have not read the books, so I'm not going to comment on those. And that's the same with, numerous other things. Judge me all you want for not reading it, but I've never read, I think I own the Fight Club book, but I haven't read it yet. I didn't read Jaws, things along those lines. I'm not going to comment on those. I'm just going to keep it to what I know and what I've consumed both versions of, both the book and the movie or TV show. So the first one I'm going to talk about is hands down my favorite movie of all time, which also coincidentally happens to be adapted from a book. The Princess Bride is my favorite movie and has been as long as I can remember. Everything about the movie is wonderful, from the casting to just the comedy and the lunacy that is the whole story, with Vizzini and the whole Dread Pirate Roberts and Inigo. The whole story, the whole movie is just fantastic. Magic. I can't remember Billy Crystal's character's name. But the whole thing is it. I can't stop talking about the movie. If you happen to know anybody who knows me, or if you know me, you have heard me rant about this movie. And it was adapted from a book, the author being William Goldman, who was experienced in writing screenplays already, and he adapted this novel himself into the screenplay, which is, please excuse the ice machine in the background, which is why it is so perfectly done and so perfectly adapted from the book. He really streamlined the story, so we had all the best parts and just made for a timeless film, in my opinion. I will never stop loving this movie and quoting it constantly. So going from that, excuse me, we'll go in a really different direction, and we'll talk about Goodfellas. Now, I believe this might be the first rated R movie I ever watched. I found the home video, the VHS. If any of you are too young to know what that is, ask an older relative. So I found my brother and I actually found the VHS one day at our house and watched it. And because of how we were introduced to it, it's just been imprinted on me ever since. Notwithstanding the fact that it's actually a genuinely great movie. So it's adapted from a nonfiction book by Nicholas Pileggi. I should have researched this before doing this. So it was a work of nonfiction by Nicholas Pileggi, and he helped to turn it into one of the best movies in the genre of gangster movies ever. He worked very closely with Martin Scorsese on the screenplay and on the movie. So that seems to be a common thread with some of these movies that are so well adapted. that the authors of the original material worked so closely with the people making the movie. So he worked closely with Scorsese to adapt the movie. And it's such a great movie. If you haven't seen it, the acting is out of this world. Ray Liotta, Robert De Niro, Lorraine Bracco, Paul Sorvino, Joe Pesci. And some of it was, there's a few like improvised parts, like Joe Pesci's famous, the I'm funny how, funny like a clown. That was all off the cuff. And it's a good movie. The last half hour is just a chaos, and you live in the paranoia. That's the word I'm looking for. You live in Ray Liotta's character, Henry Hill. You live in his paranoia for like the last half hour of the movie, and it's so well done. And the scoring is perfect for the movie as well. So if you haven't watched that, I don't know how you haven't watched it. I'm pretty sure the movie's 30 years old. But if you haven't, please go ahead and watch that. And the book that it was adapted from is not titled Goodfellas, just so everyone knows. That book was called Wise Guys. And it's a true story of a mobster named Henry Hill. The book's great. The book has a lot more detail and a lot more real crime that I don't think they actually felt comfortable putting into the movie. So, yes, Goodfellas, based on Wise Guys by Nicholas Pileggi, is one of the best adapted works as far as the feel and material from the original book. Let's get our big series and franchises out of the way. We'll start with The Hunger Games. I remember reading the entire trilogy in like a long weekend before the first movie came out. I did enjoy the books, but I don't really remember them too much. But at the time, reading them and then seeing the movies, I did appreciate them, both versions. I think the movies did a decent job. I did like the first movie, and I still do. I saw them all when they came out, and I started to lose interest in the movies after so long, so I don't really remember the later movies, but I do remember them sticking fairly well to the material. I liked the first one. I really liked a lot of the casting, too. Who doesn't enjoy Woody Harrelson, or Elizabeth Banks, or Stanley Tucci, or even Donald Sutherland in the President Snow role? And all the I don't want to call them contestants because that's a glorious word for what they did, but all the kids in the movie, all the Jennifer Lawrence's and which Hemsworth is it? Liam Hemsworth. Those characters, they all did a good job. You're heartless if the scene with Rue didn't make you cry in the first movie. So I didn't hate that franchise. And Harry Potter, trying to put aside J.K. Rowling's social media nonsense over the past few years. The books are wonderful. They're whimsical. They're entertaining. They're actually magical. They've entertained generations already, and they've only been out 25-ish years. They've already entertained generations of people, and they will for generations to come. The books are absolutely delightful to read. And the movies, I think the movies do a decent job of taking the best parts and condensing them. There, of course, as in any adaptation, there are things you wish were included a little more or maybe ignored. But I think as a whole, the whole series franchise, the whole movie franchise, does a good job of getting the story across and keeping it entertaining the entire time. There's fun, there's heartbreak, there's drama, there's action. The last couple movies are action-packed. Okay, sorry, got interrupted by my toddler running down the hallway. So yeah, the Harry Potter movies, I did like them. I think they do a good job adapting the book. I like how they get darker and darker. And the cast, so many people in those movies just did incredible jobs with their roles. Alan Rickman, who doesn't love him? Maggie Smith as McGonagall. All the kids, they all did a great job. Professor Umbridge, that woman is delightful in real life. Her name escapes me right now, but that woman is delightful in real life, and the movie makes you want to hate her. She did such a good job playing Umbridge. My big issue with those movies, and really it doesn't come until obviously the end of the last movie, is the way in which they portray Voldemort dying. The books really made a point to have him die in such just like a plain, mundane way that any man or any human would die. And it kind of, it humanizes him, this big, villainous, mythical character, and it humanizes him in the way he dies in the book. And then the movie didn't do that. The movie made it such a magical death, and that was really the one part that I really took issue with out of all 8 movies there are. That was my big issue. So moving on to, I think, the last franchise we will talk about, Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire. The adaptation, the HBO show, the seasons that were based on the books and had that source material is some of the greatest TV we've seen in the last, 10 to 15 years, whenever it started. It truly was incredible. Same thing with the casting. In the books, reading the books, Arya and Tyrion were my favorite characters, and I enjoyed seeing them both on screen. But when they ran out of the books and started to go beyond what they had source material for, I think a lot of people think that the show fell off. There were a few things I took issue with. I feel like they rushed Daenerys' story arc. Anybody who read the books could have seen at an early point what would happen with Daenerys. We could have predicted it, that she would end up going crazy given her family history. And I think the show did a poor job of portraying that and really rushed it through a couple episodes. I really feel let down in how they also washed all of Jaime Lannister's character arc away in one final scene. He did such a good job of growing from the monster that we see in the early episodes and early seasons to becoming more of a friend to Brienne and just becoming seemingly a kinder and nicer person, and distancing himself from his family, especially Cersei. And then in that final scene, would it even be a spoiler at this point with how long the show's been off the air and how much people have talked about it? But in that final scene with him and Cersei, I feel like that was a big letdown. But again, as a whole, the first, 5-ish seasons were really unlike anything else we had on TV at the time, and I think it was adapted very well from the books. Okay, so the last time I did this little free ad break for my loved ones, it ran on for over 5 minutes, so I'm going to expedite this. Ladies, if you need your fashion and makeup tips, please go to your Instagram, type in Get Ready With Me, GetRedyWithMee, Get Ready With Me, and check your spelling. I love this woman. She's beautiful, she's fashionable, and she would love to help you out if you have any questions about makeup or fashion. If you want to break the bank to look ballin' or look fine and frugal, she would be glad to help you. Again, go to your Instagram and search for Get Ready With Me, GETREDYWITHMEE. Also, go check out Average Joe's Gaming on your socials and Twitch if you're a gamer. Go to your Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, and follow, like, rate, subscribe, do all that stuff for Average Joe's Gaming. He's an old friend. I want to support him. So please, everyone, if you're a gamer, go check his stuff out. Now, if you're in Massachusetts, I got some physical businesses I want you to go and visit as often as possible. If you need a haircut in Weymouth, there is the Distinguished Barber Company. The owner is Pedro. He is a dear old friend. We have known each other since we were kids. He's been cutting hair forever. He was in my wedding. He is the best barber on the South Shore easily, but probably even beyond. He's got a great reputation. He's got a nice, clean, friendly shop, and he's a delight to sit in the chair and get your hair cut by. Again, that's the Distinguished Barber Company. Google it, look online, book your appointment online with Pedro, and please just go enjoy and appreciate the best haircut you can get. If you're in the Norwell area and you need a bite to eat, go to Blue Moon Pizza. Good food, good prices, good management, good ownership. Go ahead and tell them Sense of Shelf Pod, John Wesley sent you. If Chris is behind the counter, he'll appreciate it. You probably won't get any discount. I don't have a coupon code. This is just something I'm doing to help my loved ones. Same thing with the barber company. Tell them I sent you. Not going to help you out, but it'd be nice. And if you're north of Boston, there's the city of Somerville. Within the city of Somerville, there's rumored to be the best bakery in all the lands, where you can get the best cheesecake that you've ever had. That is the 789 Bakery. Go there. The owner's a delight. She's another old friend. I never even liked cheesecake until she held me at gunpoint and made me try one of hers, and I've never looked back. I only eat hers. I won't get it anywhere else. She's great. She's funny. She's delightful, and she makes the best cheesecake around. So please go check all those places out at Get Ready With Me, GETREDYWITHMEE on Instagram, Average Joe's Gaming on Twitch, IG, and Twitter, I think. Probably more. And physical businesses, Distinguished Barber Company in Weymouth, Blue Moon Pizza in Norwell, 789 Bakery in Somerville. Go show them love. I love to support them. I know they support me. Thank you. God bless. Let's do an easy one here. The Godfather. Probably the easiest book to movie adaptation to praise. It's gone down in history as one of the greatest films ever. It's in AFI's top 3, I think. It used to be number 1, but I think it got ousted. So, fantastic movie. The book is great. The book is the same name, written by Mario Puzo. And Puzo helped with the screenplay. So the movie does stay faithful to the book. And the book covers the events in The Godfather 1 and Part 2. And there's always discourse over which one is the best one. But I'm a fan of the original. I think the movie's great. Everyone's roles. Pacino, Brando, the random stray cat walking around the set that Brando picked up. Who else? James Caan. Everyone did a great job in that movie. And I think that's, on this list, I think that's probably one of the most faithful to its original source material. What else can we talk about? How about, let's just quickly mention Good Omens. The series, the miniseries, limited series, whatever you want to call it, was different from the source material. But if you put David Tennant and Michael Sheen on screen together in anything, I'm going to watch and enjoy it. They made that series so fun to watch. I did enjoy the original book, Good Omens. That was by Neil Gaiman and... Oh, now I'm going to draw a blank on who else wrote it. The other author was Terry Pratchett. I don't know why I just had so much trouble remembering that. I did love the original book, and although different from the book, like I said, David Tennant and Michael Sheen together, you're going to have me become a fan. I will watch it no matter what it is. Up next on my book to screen adaptations, we can talk about The Outsiders. Now, this was mandatory reading for a long time in school, so I'm sure most of you have read it. And it was a pretty big movie, so I'm sure most of you have seen it. Directed by Francis Ford Coppola, had an absolutely stacked cast for the 80s. This movie was put out in 83, and it had everyone you would imagine from the 80s. Matt Dillon, Ralph Macchio, C. Thomas Howell, Rob Lowe, Patrick Swayze, Emilio Estevez, Tom Cruise, Diane Lane, and a whole bunch of other like randoms too. Leif Garrett, Sofia Coppola had a little appearance in it. Tom Waits, everyone knows that name. All the way to Cam Neely from the Bruins and Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers. So, like I said, literally everyone in this stacked cast. It did well too at the time. I believe 33 million for the box office. And in the 80s, that was, I mean, even now, that's good, but in the 80s, that was even better. And I think it did a decent job of sticking to the source material. S.E. Hinton actually appeared in the movie as well, so you know she was very involved in it. And does it hold up? Probably not. It's definitely better read than viewed, but a good movie and good adaptation nonetheless. And again, I mean, just look at those names on that movie. How can you have a bad movie in the 80s with that cast? It's every 80s movie. It's just another version of Red Dawn with the cast. It's like they photocopied the call sheet. And then another adaptation I like, not for its accuracy, but just for it being a good movie, The Shining. You can complain all you want about it not being completely faithful to the book. Those complaints are warranted, but good book and good movie nonetheless. Movie came out in 1980, I believe. Directed by Kubrick, so you know it was going to be artful and just visually gorgeous to look at. Had Jack Nicholson in the main role as Jack Torrance, and he was incredible in it. Stephen King, the writer of The Shining, obviously, for those of you who for some reason might not know that. Stephen King didn't like it. He actually was very vehemently opposed to it at first. He didn't like the direction it went. He didn't think Kubrick really kind of went with the tone of the book. But I think over time that's lessened a little bit. The book came out in the beginning of 1977. The movie was out 4 years later. So again, faithfulness to the book aside, book and movie were both really good and both entertaining. The movie's pretty scary. The movie is visually stunning. So again, I'm not just going by accuracy when I tell you what adaptations I like. I'm going by overall. Miracle Max. Miracle Max is Billy Crystal's character from The Princess Bride. I don't know why it took me so long to remember that, but that scene with him and I believe Carol Kane played his wife is one of the funniest scenes in that entire movie. But getting back to the rest of my adaptations. let's talk about some limited series. I already mentioned Good Omens, but let's talk about some other ones. Station 11. I really love the book. I actually spoke about that book in my favorite books of the last 10 years episode. It was a really great book. It's a little dark to read right now, given what the world is going through with the pandemic, but it's based on a pandemic, the Georgia flu. That I think that's what it's coined, and it ravages the population, and it's about a certain group's survival afterward. Great book, though. It was a debut novel by that Emily St. John Mandel. And the show and the book was recently adapted to a limited series on HBO. And I really liked the show. I thought they did a great job with it, with bringing everything to the screen. I just think it was really well done. I think the casting was great. There's a lot of time jumping that is done. And I think it was done well. It's not cumbersome. It doesn't slow down the story. It all makes sense. Every time they jump back or jump forward, it makes sense and helps progress the story. And I think it was very well done. I really hadn't, even watching it, I don't remember having many complaints about it. I think it stuck to the book really well, and the time jumping, which can normally be a problem in some projects, I think was done well and helped to move the show and story forward. Another limited series that I really liked was Underground Railroad. Again, another book I spoke about in my favorite books of the last 10 years. Colson Whitehead is a phenomenal author. If you haven't read anything by him, what are you waiting for? So go read that. The book is emotional. The book is powerful, and that show was on Amazon, and it was fantastic. Just everything about it. It was done well with sticking to the source. And the woman who played the main character, Cora, I'm going to look up her name now because I don't research these things ahead of time. I usually just ramble off the cuff when I'm recording. But the woman who played Cora was just phenomenal, and I can't wait to see what she does going forward and the opportunities she has, because when she was on screen, it was just riveting. When she cried, you cried. Everything she did was done so well. She's a great actress. Her name is, I'm gonna mess this up, Thuso Mbedu. She's a South African actress, so I apologize for getting that name probably wildly incorrect. But yes, I can't wait to see what she gets to do going forward, because she was amazing in this series. And you might hear my food cooking in the background. I apologize. The last one I'm going to talk about is Watchmen. Now, before you get angry, I know the show was not based on the book. It's not adapted from the graphic novel. Fantastic graphic novel. It's one of the few I've read and really enjoyed. I know this show was not adapted from that, but it is based on that story. The movie was adapted from the graphic novel, and the movie did a good job sticking to the source material. It almost stuck to it too much. I think it kind of went on a little long, and I think there's a lot that could have been cut out. But that's just my opinion on the movie. I mostly want to talk about the show. I think the show was great. It had action, it had suspense, it had drama, it had a little of everything. It had Regina King as the main actress, and she is a queen, and she's been one of my favorite actresses for a long time. I could list her resume, and I'd like everything. I could go to her IMDb and said, Liked it, loved it. She was in The Boondocks. She voiced both Huey and Riley. She was in Friday. She was in If Beale Street Could Talk, another adapted movie from the James Baldwin novel of the same name. Both are really good. She was in the Netflix short limited series 7 Seconds. That was very powerful, very emotional. She was in This Christmas, Boys in the Hood. She's been in everything, and she's been great in everything. And I think the show was good. And it also it was a part of the Jean Smart Renaissance, which apparently was desperately needed by society because she's now been in everything. So that's the last limited series I'll talk about. Station 11, Underground Railroad, Watchmen. I liked them all. I liked all the books. Some stuck to the source material better than others. Here's looking at you, Watchmen. But that was purposely done in that way. It was a story, going past the graphic novel, going past the events in the graphic novel. But they were all done very well. And the last adaptation I'm going to ramble on about is To Kill a Mockingbird. The book is and always has been one of my favorite novels. I read it for the first time in English class, I believe in the 8th grade. And after finishing the book, the teacher also showed us the movie. The book, it still holds up, in my opinion, despite the ghosts at a Watchmen. I'm not going to touch on that book because I like to keep things pretty positive. And that would be hard to do. But I think the book still holds up pretty well. It's a pretty good story. It's, it really shows humanity. There's a man falsely accused. It's in the Jim Crow South. There's a black man falsely accused of raping a white woman. And Atticus Finch is given the case. He's a lawyer. He's given the case, and he has a job to do. So he's going to do it to the best of his abilities. He doesn't give in to the prejudice and racism of his townspeople. He shows a good strength of character, and the themes to the story, whether you look at it for the prejudice or the family life or courage on his behalf, those themes still hold up and are still relevant today. So I think the book really does stand the test of time, and the movie is just a cinematic classic. You have Gregory Peck in the lead role as Atticus Finch, and that man was just built to be a leading Hollywood man. Again, taking into account the time when the movie came out, he was the quintessential leading man given the time. The book came out the movie. The movie came out in 1962, so the 60s are not a great time in our country. But given the time that it did come out, he was the stereotypical leading man. The strong jawline, the powerful voice. He was a good actor as well. So to see him in To Kill a Mockingbird, and then for anyone, it's a very old movie, so I don't know who would remember it and who wouldn't. But if you want to see the man flex his acting chops, watch Arsenic and Old Lace. It's a comedy from the 40s, and it is very funny. And Cary Grant is in that as a lead as well. So the adaptation, I think, stuck to the book very well. I think most people would agree with it. And that's going to be the last one I'm going to talk about. I love the book. I've been a fan of the book since I was 13. I don't know if I've said my age before on this podcast, but that was a long time ago. So I've loved the book for a long time, and I think the movie was great. Gregory Peck in the leading role as Atticus Finch, and a young Robert Duvall as Boo Radley. Who wouldn't love that? So I think they stuck to the book really well, but I think it was just a good movie. I think the story is really good, so I think it transfers well to either medium. So that's going to be the last adaptation I'm going to ramble on about to you. So that's going to conclude my episode on book to screen adaptations that I liked. Now I'm going to repeat. These were just ones that I liked. They weren't the ones that I think stuck so closely to the source material that they deserve a mention or anything along those lines. Like I said, I mentioned the Watchmen series. That was events that didn't happen in the story. It was just the characters. So it wasn't, I'm not speaking to the accuracy of these adaptations. Some of them I did, but it's really just my opinion on which ones were done the best, which ones were the most entertaining. That's all I was going for. So if you have comments on the ones I chose or didn't choose, you're welcome to email me or send me a message on social media. Instagram, Twitter, and Gmail are all senseofshelfpod. senseofshelfpod@gmail.com and @senseofshelfpod for both Twitter and IG handles. By all means, send me a message if you had an issue with what I did or did not mention. I only spoke about ones I liked that I consumed both versions of. I never watched The Great Gatsby movie. I read the book, never watched the movie, so I didn't talk about it. So that's just where I was coming from. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I always appreciate your listening. Please subscribe, rate, and review on whichever app you're currently using to listen to this podcast. And go check out my good friends Ben Hunt at the Enlightened Podcast, his haven for all things nerd. He talks about Star Wars, Harry Potter. He goes into history too. He's got an extensive history knowledge. So he goes into history. He talks a lot about the Beatles. He's a big fan of them. I appeared on one episode so far about Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings animated movie. Please give it a listen. That's a wild movie. So again, that's Ben Hunt, and his show is The Enlightened Podcast. And you can find him on social media as well. Twitter and Instagram. Enlightened Pod 1, I believe, is his Twitter, off the top of my head. And also check out my dear friend Chris Galley with Beantown Action. He has he does two shows basically under that banner. Wix Picks, where he talks sports lines, betting, odds, fantasy football, sports in general. And then he's got the Distinguished Gentleman, which is him and three mutual friends. And they just talk about a little of everything. Talk about life, music, sports, pop culture. Like I said, little of everything. And they always have a specific bottle of alcohol they're trying with each episode. I believe the last one was Avion. I think that's a tequila, if I remember correctly. So go check him out. So it's Ben Hunt with the Enlightened Pod, Chris Galley at Beantown Action. Go show them the same love you show me. Subscribe, rate, review. Just do all the things. We all appreciate it. Thank you. God bless.